Welcome to the debut NFL episode of Hot Models and Bet Middlers. We're going to have the hottest models and computer betting systems, as well as Bet Middlers. What are they? That's games that, based on the advanced weather forecast, I believe the totals will drop, and you'll have an opportunity, if you bet the under right now, to possibly come back and bet the over. And I will also, at the end, talk about who have been the best spread teams in the NFL and who have been the worst spread teams based on the margin of cover. The way we look at it, the worst spread teams are actually the best ones to bet against. All that and more from Joe Duffy of Picks and Parlays. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. You definitely want to see the college football version of this. I'll be honest with you, right now I have only one Bet Midler opportunity in the NFL, 2 in college football, but as the year goes on and the weather gets worse, there are going to be some times where in college football we could easily have 8 to 10 Bet Midler opportunities. In the NFL, we'll have a few, but these hot models and systems you're going to love. So make sure, like and subscribe. And also in the comment section, please tell me what you want. I have access to everything. I've been a professional sports handicapper, Joe Duffy, since 1988. What do you want for free? Let me know in the comments section. All right, our first hot model to consider. Winless teams with at least 2 losses are 397, 343, and 17 since 1992. Couple reasons. I've told you time and time again, and if you've been a premium client of mine, you've been winning for years, you know that the NFL, number one, regression to the mean sport. As a general rule of thumb, it's a pretty good idea to bet on bad and or ice cold teams and the bet against very good and or red hot teams. But the public especially despises betting on horrific teams. And of course, you might say that's obvious, but I'm talking about even as opposed to, say, like Tom Brady in his prime or Patrick Mahomes in his prime. They would be more willing to bet against them, at least if it's with another good team. But the public absolutely hates betting on bad teams, even if it's against another bad team, even if it's against a mediocre team. So not surprisingly, you win ugly in the NFL. Some of the best bets are going with really bad teams and or cold teams, and when you combine the two. So in this situation, of course, we have quite a few 0-2 teams, and that system I just gave you is even substantially better if the team we're betting on is an underdog at 317, 248, and 12. In fact, 297, 228, and 12 if the opponent has fewer than 5 wins, which of course means in then week 3, they obviously will. So this week, those systems favor the Dolphins, the Browns, Titans, Jets, Panthers, Texans, Saints, and the Giants. And keep in mind, when these are combined with other systems, they become premium plays at Joe Duffy's Picks at Picks and Parlays. So a couple of these are going to be premium plays. You might want to lock into my picks, which, by the way, we're going to give you the entire weekend for just $49. Saturday and Sunday football, Monday, if any, at Picks and Parlays. Every single football pick, just $49. Now, most of our, just the opposite, most of our angles as far as going with or against, for that matter, undefeated teams are right at about 500. Now, that's going to be surprising to the general public and to sharps for slightly different reasons. The general public, which of course likes betting on really good teams, they would probably be surprised that betting on good teams isn't, hitting 55, 60%, where those of us who know you kind of go against the grain, you got to bet against the really good teams. We might be a little bit surprised that it's not a pretty good fade angle. But again, like I said, the public definitely hates betting on horrid teams as opposed to betting against good teams more. So it's not really that surprising that betting on hard teams, though, is much better. Of a moderate surprise, undefeated teams to winless teams are actually 205, 194, and 9. Now, there is no edge there, but it is a warning for the public that loves betting on the good teams. almost no edge. And maybe for the sharps that know that betting against good teams, especially in the NFL, is often a big edge, we got to go by the facts and the facts only. We got to know the rules and we got to know the exceptions. All right, here's another hot model for you. Kind of counterintuitive. When the points per game margins imply that the road team should be a much bigger dog, go with that road team at 285, 183, and 15. I'm going to tell you who that applies to. A couple teams this weekend. But what do I mean by that? All right. Home field advantage means 3 points. Is worth about 3 points. So if two evenly matched teams were playing, the home team would be a 3-point favorite. Now, when this applies, for example, the Houston Texans are minus 6 points in their margin, their points margin this year. Jacksonville is plus 12. So if we were to go on nothing else other than the margin, we would say Jacksonville is the better team, and Jacksonville's playing at home, so Jacksonville should be at least a 3.5-point favorite, a 4-point favorite, but they're not. There's two situations where that does apply, not just the Texans, where again, based on the pure numbers, they should be a bigger dog, and the Broncos. And so many of our systems fit under the umbrella, I say counterintuitive, but also listen to what the odds makers are telling you. When the odds makers are making a statement that is not congruent with the straight up records and or the points per game margins, go with that knowledge, use it against them. So again, that counterintuitive system, when the points per game margin would imply that the road team should be a bigger underdog, and they're not, go with the smaller underdog. So that system would favor the Broncos and the Texans. Now, bet on teams with a minus 8 or worse spread margin is 488, 369, and 27. Now, again, that's similar to points per game, except it's relative to a point spread. So, again, if a team is a 10-point underdog and they lose by 17, that would be a minus 7 spread margin. If they lose by 3, that would be a plus 7. Well, then, average on the season when a team is minus 8 or worse, it's that tremendous record we said, game 12 or less, which, of course, this is week 3, they're 479, 357, and 27. So we're not only betting on teams that have been really bad against the spread, and the public gets shell-shocked. They're like, oh my God, I got burnt by this team 2 weeks in a row. 3, they keep burning me. I'm not going to bet on them anymore. And then, as a result, that bias is baked into the line, and these teams become good value. Who does that system favor this week? The Dolphins, the Steelers, and the Bears. And I know what you're saying. Well, yuck, that's disgusting. That's the point. Remember, NFL, more than any other sport, you got to win ugly. Bet on underdogs with a much worse spread margin. That means there's a minus 15 gap between the two teams, or a 15-point gap between the two teams. So in other words, the way I just explained to you, let's just say one team is plus 10 for the year as far as spread margin. Another team is minus 5. That would be a 15-point difference. And of course, it could be both positive and negative. They could both be positive numbers, both negative numbers. If one team is averaging, covering by an average of 17 points per game, the other team is covering by an average of 2 points per game, that would still be a 15-point margin. So go with the worst team, a 15-point deficit based on what I just explained to you, is with a 266, 203, and 12, and even better in weeks 3 through 12, so you got at least a 2-game margin, but then at the end of the year, or at least you have a two-game sample size, I should say. But towards the end of the year, where maybe in the NFL the motivations change, so between weeks 3 and 12, it's even better. 186, 134, and 10. That's 58.1%. That would favor the Dolphins and the Titans. And again, many cases we're winning ugly. If you don't want to win ugly, then no, we're just going to win. I know. My bets are usually not the most fun to watch, the toughest ones to root for, but at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the year, they're going to win more than anyone else because we realize we definitely will go and fade the public perception. We know when the odds makers have to overplay a line. Now, betting on underdogs that are 0-2 in week 3, 90, 54-1 for 62.5%. Again, the common theme here, Dolphins, Texans, Broncos, and the Saints. Again, like, comment, subscribe. What do you want more of? Tell me what you want in these free videos. You ask, and you shall receive. All right, the Bette Midler alert, like I said, because of pure volume, you're usually going to have more in college football, and especially once we get into late October, November, December, the number of games are really going to skyrocket, and especially in college football, you're going to get a lot of Bette Midler opportunities. We have a system when the winds are above 10 miles per hour in the NFL, the temperature is above freezing, 599, 447, and 9. Based on the current forecast, Houston and Jacksonville under. So the theory being, if you bet the under now, you might have a nice opportunity for a middle and bet the over closer to game time. Truthfully, this is even better in college football, as I said, but the advanced winds often hold up. So that is your Bette Midler for now. Let's take a quick peek. Would have been the best teams to bet on, again, based on the margin of cover. I explained to you how the margin of cover works. The Indianapolis Colts with Indiana Jones as their quarterback. They're perfect 2-0 this year, ATS, covering by an average of 13 points per game. In fact, Green Bay, the Chargers, and Buffalo are all 2-0 this year, covering by 8.3 or more points per game. Now, who have been the worst teams? Or, from our point of view, the best teams to bet against? Miami, you probably could have guessed that, right? 0-2, minus 16.3 points per game. The Bears at minus 14, and Pittsburgh, as we said, minus 9.5. But, again, especially those bad teams, they're the teams that actually are valued. They're undervalued. Now, think of it this way. The odds makers are very rarely wrong. They're right more than they're wrong. That's why you got all these beautiful sports books. That's why most people cannot beat the odds makers. So use that against them. Usually when a team isn't covering, it's because they're underachieving. So there's really bad spread teams. Very often, more times than not, become good bets. We know the rules. We know the exceptions. Again, go to Picks and Parlays right now. Sign up for my Weekend Warrior package. Every college football pick for Saturday. Every college football pick for Sunday. Got to be honest with you, I don't memorize them. I'm a guy that does a lot of computer stuff. Like I said, that's why even when I was in college, I did great on research papers, not so great in quizzes. Pretty certain I got the Monday Night Football as well. But double check. Picks and Parlays. Know I got a great portfolio all weekend long. Joe Duffy's picks at Picks and Parlays. And yes, make sure right now you check out another winning video from Picks and Parlays.